hosted the South African President, Cyril Ramaphosa.
And all of the pictures that we're seeing are extremely positive, aren't they? Extremely positive. And one thing, actually, which is good about having an older monarch is he has been able to establish these relationships throughout the years, which the late Queen, I will not speak of her service in a bad way, but she didn't have that experience when she came to the throne. The King has had years of experience and he's learned from the very best. Therefore, it's more natural for him now to be able to host these banquets and actually have real conversations.
With his speech just before the state banquets got up and running, as it were, we're inside the ballroom of Buckingham Palace, a couple of things stood out to me. Yes. The first of which was he repeated what he said at the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting earlier this year, where he said we need to recognise the wrongs which this country have done, perhaps referring to the historical slave trade. Yep. Once again, almost willing a conversation to start.
Yes, he did. That in itself was huge. I think the royal family have shied away from that for a very, very long time. It is showing a completely new reign, a completely new, more perhaps modern outlook on things. I think people just want to hear that, you know, the royal family haven't always been perfect and they're acknowledging the history. His relationship with the Commonwealth is so important.
Coming up, Dame Arlene Foster reveals what it was like in the room when Charles was formally proclaimed king.
He lost his mother on the Thursday. Here he was on the Saturday morning, standing in front of all of his Privy Councillors. They're his Privy Councillors now. And it was quite a moment, I have to say.
And to find out why Prince Harry's relationship with the royal family is on a knife edge.
If he is seen to be overtly critical and damaging of the royal family as an institution, there will be repercussions to that.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Thanks for joining us here on GB News as we look back on the royal family's 2022. Now, if you can remember all the way back to January, Prince Andrew settled out of court in a civil sexual assault case against him with his accuser, Virginia Giuffre. The Duke of York has always denied the allegations, but the fallout led to his mother, the late Queen, stripping him of his honorary military titles, and he no longer uses his HRH status. And I predict there is simply no way back for him as a working member of the royal family. Kinsey Schofield is a royal podcaster and blogger from the United States, where Virginia Giuffre brought legal action against the Queen's son.
There was a lot of back and forth, and he had an incredible team that really fought back against Virginia. They said, you don't live in the United States. They struggled with the fact that Jeffrey Epstein was supposed to have collected all of this himself when he paid out some of these alleged victims. It wasn't supposed to touch Prince Andrew. Prince Andrew hid, I'm sorry to use the word, but he kind of hid in Balmoral, did not want to get that summons. And when he inevitably was handed that paperwork, they decided that it wasn't worth fighting, to protect the reputation of the monarchy and to protect the future of the monarchy. I think that he listened to the right people and he decided to settle with Virginia Giuffre so that they could end this controversy.
Do you think that's why he did it, to protect the monarchy? Because lots of people fail to understand how someone who maintains they are innocent of any wrongdoing would be prepared to pay out reportedly millions of dollars to a woman he claims to have never met.
I agree with you. However, $1 million is nothing to the royal family. Also in Hollywood, it's often a strategy that they utilize just to make something go away, to end the conversation and to move on. So it doesn't seem especially like something that the royal family would do, because they're never complain, never explain, but it's a very Hollywood way of going about things. It's a very American way of going about things. And I think that he had counsel that said, let's make this go away right now. And the easiest solution is to cut a check. It did really haunt the family at the time. And I think that you saw really Prince William and King Charles distancing themselves from Andrew and start the process of really pushing him out, because they thought this person is a liability to our family and to our future.
And perhaps the Queen also felt that because she stripped him of his honorary military titles. He's no longer allowed to use his HRH status. But this is a man, isn't it, who was born into the royal family, served his country in the Royal Navy, he fought in the Falklands War. How do you think he was feeling at that time?
I think where he was really heartbroken was the fact that his mother was ultimately the one that made the decision, and Queen Elizabeth had been by his side throughout the entire process. The ultimate hurt there was the fact that he felt like he might have lost his mother in that process, that she might no longer be on his side.
Let's turn now to the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, who now live in California. Now, the couple secretly visited the UK despite Harry's security concerns to see the Queen in April, before jetting off to the Netherlands for the Duke's Invictus Games, which is an Olympic-like competition for wounded veterans. They briefly appeared at the Platinum Jubilee celebrations, but swiftly flew back across the pond. But it's the commercial deals which have proved the most controversial. Netflix and Spotify have reportedly paid them millions of dollars, and Harry's imminent memoir is going to make for uncomfortable reading. The title, Spare, quite a loaded title.
It is a loaded title. It's a provocative title. It's thought-provoking. And if the title is one word to sum up how Harry feels, packs a punch. It's pretty powerful. I've spoken to Prince Harry in the past quite a few times. And, more than once he has said to me, I wish I hadn't been born a prince. He said to me once, I'd love to just be able to go into a coffee shop and buy a coffee, to jump on the tube and travel on a train. I think it's very indicative of where the book is going to go, and it suggests that he has always felt on the periphery, an outsider, a spare, a backup, rather than someone in his own right. And actually, I think that's pretty sad.
What I struggle with is the narrative that Meghan forced him out of the royal family. In fact,
yes.
Even before Prince Harry met Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, he wanted to find a way out.
Yes, I think it's very easy for people to blame Meghan for everything. I mean, the very term Megxit suggests entirely that she is responsible for them leaving. I don't believe that was the case at all. I think that Harry had been looking for a way out for some time, and Meghan was a catalyst. And I think I sort of set the record straight in the new royals that, Harry was just as much behind this decision to leave.
This publication of Harry's memoir was meant to come out in the autumn, wasn't it?
Yes.
Why do you think there has been a delay?
Well, I think the book's been subject to several delays. It was meant to be coming out in the autumn of 2022, so around that Thanksgiving pre-Christmas market, which is a very lucrative time for selling books. But I think the Queen's death changed everything. Harry had the luxury of being able to change some of the copy, to update it. I think people reading that book would absolutely want to know his place in the funeral, how he felt about his place in the funeral, how he felt about losing his grandmother. I mean, that journey to Balmoral, when he missed the flight with other members of the royal family and went to Balmoral on his own, that's going to be a really powerful and important account to read.
How much do you think he will criticise the royal family?
I think the title suggests that he's going to be quite critical. I mean, anyone labelled the spare and who sees their identity as the spare suggests it's not going to be entirely favourable about the royal family. One does wonder if some of the revisions made to bring the book up to speed might also have included some watering down of the manuscript. And I think Harry's also acutely aware that if he is seen to be overtly critical and damaging of the royal family as an institution, there will be repercussions to that. There's the matter of titles here, and I suspect very strongly that Charles could revoke their titles and possibly not bestow titles on their children if Harry and Meghan's intention is to continue throwing hand grenades into the royal family.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's because arguably brand Sussex only works because they have the titles, because their children now have the rights to be prince and princess.
Absolutely.
And now that Charles is king, there's a real balancing act they've got to do here.
Well, Meghan and Harry know that their commercial future and the success of their future is absolutely entwined with their royal titles. But if they were to lose their actual royal titles, the Duke and Duchess, that comes at a real cost to them. I mean, suddenly their star quality is much diminished.
Will the public, when they read this book, will they be sympathetic to his cause?
People really struggling at the moment. I do think that woe is me narrative is wearing very thin for Harry. And I think if this is a book solely about victimhood, there's every possibility it may not be the bestseller that we are all expecting it to be.
We both know Harry and Meghan divide people. You have one side of the argument that says they want privacy. They want to be financially independent. So why are they going on shows like Oprah, on a global stage, talking about relations with the royal family? We know the royal family is extremely private. But then you also have the other side, where people say, hold on, so many people have something to say about them, they deserve a voice too.
I'm really curious to know, what is the overall feeling of Americans towards Harry and Meghan?
I think American perception of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex has changed drastically over the last 12 months. There's a sense of entitlement, a sense of, do you always focus on the negative? Is there anything positive going on in your, multi-million-dollar mansion? They've been caught in a couple of fibs, and the United States is starting to recognize it.
So I remember when Harry and Meghan first announced that they were going to leave the royal family as full-time working members, move across to America. And one of the reasons for that was because they wanted more privacy.
I think the appearances and the branding are Meghan Markle's dream come true. If you read some of these books that really delve into the strategy behind her glow up, she's a smart woman, and some of these things that are happening for her right now are things that she wanted to happen for her when she was little named actress in Hollywood, California, getting her third rejection of the day. Harry, without a doubt, has made Meghan Markle's dreams come true of becoming an international celebrity.
Coming up, I'll discuss a defining moment in British history with GB News presenters Alistair Stewart and Dame Arlene Foster.
The fact that they had told the Prime Minister and told the Leader of the Opposition, we all knew that it was a serious situation.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online. Across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions, and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions. I have no time for cultural totalitarianism. We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236,
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB+ radio,
with the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Well, it's hard to believe that Queen Elizabeth II, who reigned over us for more than 70 years, is no longer here. The news made headlines around the world and it marked a huge change in our country. For me, I spent most of my time here at Buckingham Palace, but GB News also went around the country to pubs and community centres, hearing your stories and memories of Britain's longest reigning monarch. I sat down with Alistair Stewart and Arlene Foster for their reflections. What do you remember about that day at GB News?
I think I remember most strongly the fact that it happened in the midst of a real-life political storm as well, and a couple of events encapsulated the woman's extraordinary life of service and of duty, and that is that she marched Boris Johnson out as Prime Minister and she marched Liz Truss in as Prime Minister.
We all looked at the photographs, and actually we hadn't seen her for a while in reality, and we looked at her and we thought, oh, she's got small, she's looking quite frail, but she gave a lovely smile. Do you remember the lovely smile to the camera that she gave? And we were all, well, I certainly was, really pleased to see her. And then all of a sudden there was all of this note passing in the Commons and people looking very serious, and everybody was wondering what it was, and then it was, the Queen's not well. And the fact that they had told the Prime Minister and told the Leader of the Opposition, we all knew that it was a serious situation, because you don't tell senior politicians that you've got a cold or whatever. It was serious.
Yeah. And Alistair, you were the one who broke the news on GB News. What was going through your head at that time?
Peter Sissons, who was a very close friend of mine and got crucified for a simple minor point about a tie. You just know that an awful lot of people will be listening and watching, and it is a determination to try and get it right.
You both met the late Queen on a number of occasions. What was she like as a person?
I mean, I have so much admiration for the Queen, because she was a female leader at a time when there weren't very many female leaders about, and she was so young when she came to the throne. I had the great privilege of meeting her in a private audience when I was First Minister, and that is a nerve-wracking occasion when you're thinking about going in to meet the head of state and a lady of her stature, and when I say her stature, she is quite small, of course, and the photograph of me meeting her, I looked like an enormous giant beside her, because I'm a lot taller than her.
Let's talk about the Accession Council. First of all, the fact that it was televised was very significant, wasn't it?
That was quite extraordinary. In so many respects, never seen it before. Read the words, seen pictures of it, seen stills of it, even Edward VIII. But Penny Mordaunt's a personal friend, and she'd only just been made Lord President of the Council.
Absolutely.
And she's the woman who keeps the new king waiting while she reads out the rules of engagement.
and then privy councillors, including the lovely one next to me, then say, yep, OK, he's the genuine article, he is the heir, and yes, we all agree to it. And it was just magical, because it was constitution, it was politics, it was people we've elected, people who lead us and we can get rid of, bringing in the guy who is there to do the job of work because he is the eldest son of the now dead monarch. I just thought it was magical.
He'd lost his mother on the Thursday. Here he was on the Saturday morning, standing in front of all of his privy councillors. They're his privy councillors now. And it was quite a moment, I have to say. And there were 6 prime ministers there.
Yes.
People from Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland and England.
And of course, following the Accession Council, all the flags were raised to full mast, just for 24-hour periods, celebrating the new monarch, even though it was only less than 2 days earlier that we'd lost our old one. So that was an interesting time.
It was all of that sort of planning that had been there for many, many years. Kicked in, and it was so smooth. And obviously, because the Queen had passed away in Scotland, there was a whole different arrangement then that had to be gone through in terms of how we would progress down to London.
And the other moment, which I really did think was special, and Arlene and I both adore Parliament and everything that it stands for, both houses of it, was the number of members of Parliament who chose to accept Lindsay Hoyle's invitation as Speaker to retake their oaths of allegiance. Labour and Tory, Liberal Democrat, across the spectrum, lining quietly up just to declare their loyalty to King Charles and his heirs, etc., etc., etc.
And she laid at rest in St Giles Cathedral for 24 hours, particularly symbolic for me because it showed the late Queen was truly a queen of the United Kingdom.
I think sometimes we forgot that here was a royal family, here was a new king mourning at that time, because he had to go out and go right around the United Kingdom. And I have to say, I think it was a stroke of genius, that progress of King Charles around the United Kingdom. So he went to Northern Ireland, he had a service, he went to Scotland, he went to Wales. And it allowed people to show their respect for his late mother, but also their love for him. And I think that that was really, really strong. We were going out and talking to people and asking them why. Why were they standing in a queue for 12, 14 hours? Why did they feel that they wanted to do that? And I think people really loved that.
When the new king and the new Prince of Wales went down unexpectedly, unannounced, unplanned, to do a walkabout with the people who were still queuing to go into the Great Hall at Westminster to pay their final respects. And that in itself is extraordinary. I was really hooked on that because people would queue for hours on end. They'd finally get in and it would be 5 seconds, 6 seconds. And one of the standout moments of the whole thing for me was when James VII and Louise Windsor, the Wessex children, joined the other grandchildren and stood their vigil. I just thought that was knockout, with Sophie and Edward and others standing in that little gallery in the Great Hall, watching them like any mum and dad would.
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
Right, and come back in here and hold. You're all right. You did well.
But Sophie looked quite emotional, didn't she? Because she was looking at her children and thinking, "Oh my goodness." I think it was important that the family did come together because I think everybody was watching what would happen with Harry and Meghan. And at the end of the day, they are a family in mourning. I think it was quite proper for them to come down and meet people and to stay together. Sadly, I have to say this, Cameron, I don't think that unity has lasted. And I think we're going to see that in the new year, and that's a great sadness to me as a monarchist, that someone within the family system would try and do damage to what is the system that I think is fabulous for our country and our nation.
I guess if there is one huge challenge for the new king, it is to try and get that family pulling together again, but also to do it in a way that lets everybody out there look in on a family that's sole purpose in reality is to unite the country, and it ain't at the moment.
The state's funeral itself was clearly such a historical moment for so many reasons.
It was really sombre, and I had the great privilege and honour to be in the cathedral when the coffin went past, when the family walked. How difficult must that have been to walk the whole way from Westminster Abbey up past Buckingham Palace It was a very difficult thing for them to do, but they wanted to do it because it was their last act for their late mother, and she was duty personified. So I think it was just right that they carried out her wishes to the very last.
I think a huge significance as well, talking about Her Majesty's fingerprints having been all over the whole affair, is that it was in Westminster Abbey. That was best for procession.
Yeah.
That was best for the public to see and pay their final moment of tribute.
And she had gone there on so many occasions. Yes. She was someone who really believed that she was a Christian.
Horses and corgis at Windsor Castle. First of all, we had Emma, the Queen's pony. What kind of pony was that, Alistair?
Well, she didn't only care about and love horses and ponies, and clearly rode very well as a child on a pony from the word go. She knew more about that industry and about breeding and about rare breeds than pretty well anybody in the country. Sturdy little fellas, bless their hearts, that she rode out with Terry, the head groom, across Windsor Great Park, almost towards the end, and would never wear a hard hat, which used to upset quite a few people.
Having the two corgis as well, Mick and Sandy, gifted by Prince Andrew, and now back with Prince Andrew, but it was a really emotional moment watching those images.
And the staff coming out as well, standing out, so many of the staff who wanted to pay their respects.
Final point for both of you, what do you think is the lasting legacy of Queen Elizabeth II?
Oh my goodness, there's so much. She has done so much for the country, across the world. She's been a global icon. I think her solid leadership has shown, for me as a female, what women can do in the world in a quiet way. You don't have to be bolshy, you don't have to be out there. You can lead quietly with dignity and integrity, and she has done that. And when I look, I think the heroine of the whole thing for me is Princess Anne. Yes. She travelled from Scotland with her mother's coffin. When I looked at her on parade, she was as straight-backed as any of the men that were there. I think Anne takes on her mother's mantle in respect of female leadership, and I think she does a fabulous job.
Some damn fine women generally in there, in this generation.
Oh, and Sophie as well, absolutely.
Sophie Wessex, certainly, Princess of Wales, the Queen Consort herself.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
For me, her bequest to the nation is the constitutional monarchy.
Correct.
She showed up against all odds and pressures and strains. She understands why, rather like Churchill on democracy, it may not be perfect, but until you have a look at all of the other systems available, it's not bad. That woman just understood that we politically are in the safest possible hands if we can always elect and reject a government every 4 or 5 years. But there is a constancy at the top of it that understands what we care about. And she did, and I genuinely think the new king does as well.
The highs and lows are set to continue into next year. The Prince and Princess of Wales have scored a hit with their trip here to the US, where they've met with President Joe Biden ahead of Williams' Environmental Earthshot Prize. But it was overshadowed by the release of Harry and Meghan's highly controversial docuseries. Are we facing another fractious year for the royal family? I guess we'll find out.
Looking ahead to this afternoon, and the UK is looking mild for most and some sunny spells, but also windy with showery rain. Let's take a look at the details. Starting off looking at Scotland, and here there will be some showery rain across southern parts this afternoon, whilst colder air brings snow showers from the north later on. It will be very wet for a time across Northern Ireland as a band of heavy showery rain pushes eastwards with some strong winds. This same band of showery rain will push across northwestern England too, though it will take a bit of time to push across all parts. Sunny spells for much of Wales this afternoon, with a few showers feeding in from the northwest, turning wetter later as the band of showery rain sweeps across, temperatures widely in double figures. Meanwhile, it's looking mostly dry with decent sunny breaks across much of the East Midlands. More southern parts may have a little rain for a time, but this should clear through the afternoon. A similar picture